what made you guys decide to add wind to your schedule?
Yeah, so we've always had I guess a lot of people call it a flex period of time or advisory time. Different people call it different things, but we've always had a time in our schedule that's been set aside for opportunities for students to get help, or we have different meetings and things that might happen, or class meetings, or graduation meetings and such. Um, Prior to just a few years ago, we didn't have a mechanism to where we could, I guess, get the whole school community involved, and where it was organized in a way in which it was systematic and part of the fabric of, what we were doing. It was, we used to use a lot of Excel spreadsheets.
Mm.
We used to send out via email lists of kids of where they would be, and here's a giant spreadsheet, and the kids next to your name, and that's your roster. So when we moved to this, when we changed some of our goals or thought about some of the goals of what we wanted our school to be, we needed a tool or mechanism that would maybe help and easily organize our school community a little bit better. And so um, that's why we transitioned and started using this platform, because it eliminated our spreadsheets, and it enabled students and teachers to take ownership over the time, instead of somebody in an office somewhere manipulating the spreadsheet that wasn't necessarily on the kid level floor.
Yeah, we hear that a lot, and it hurts a little bit every time we hear somebody doing a spreadsheet. So can't be a fun process.
No.
So when it came to actually implementing the wind time, did you have a process or sort of any committees and different staff members that were involved in implementing that?
Yeah, so we formulated a team of teachers. It was a small team. We had, I don't know, 3, 4 teachers on it and 2 principals on it, because we had the time set aside. And so what we were wanting to do was reimagine a little bit about what some of the parameters were around the time. How often did we want to um, do different things within that time period and throughout the week? So, for example, do we want all 5 days of the week to have freedom of movement with our students during this time period? Do we want one day of the week to be a check-in at a centralized homeroom, and then the other 4 days? Or do we want to have a Monday and a Friday where they check in at their homerooms, and there is, during that time period, is when we maybe do some school-wide lessons. And then in the middle of the week, we might be moving to our to individual classes with the freedom of movement where they've signed up or been assigned to an enriching student. So that was some of the early tackles that that team had to come to grips with, and try and decide. And we had sent some surveys out and got some feedback on that. And then just thinking about what was going to be manageable within our school day. What were some of the pitfalls that we had when we were using back in the spreadsheet days? And so that team of people um, really came to some concrete ideas of what they wanted it to look like. And from there, I thought probably the best thing that we did is we put it on paper in a formalized handbook for our teachers. So we actually have just as you'd think of a student handbook for rules and expectations for the school, and that's real thick, that goes out to parents. We have that just for our win time, and what the purpose of that time is, who's responsible for scheduling, students or teachers or both, what happens, on certain days of the week, what's the teacher expectation, the student expectation. All of that is laid out in a written format and handbook. So once we've implemented it, now we can refer back to, hey, take a look at this in the win time handbook. We got to tighten this piece up. It's on page 4. We might screenshot it, put it in the staff newsletter. But those guidelines, that baseline, it is set, and now it's kind of our guiding document. And now we can just make edits to it um, as we bend and adjust that time as we progress as a school.
It sounds like you've kind of standardized it. And then that's a great way to hold people accountable, but also takes some pressure off teachers, I would think. They don't have to wonder about what to do.
Yeah, it's clarity. It
Hmm.
provides clear expectations for them. And then in August when we come back to school, um, part of our rules and expectations of, you know, classroom behavior and hallway expectations, just like every school across the country does. This becomes part of our expectation presentations for students, and we use that handbook as we just pull. Okay, we're going to do page 5 today out of the Wind Time handbook. We'll do page 6 on Wednesday, page 7 on Thursday, and um, and that is how we, I think, have standardized it across our building. As big as our building is, we've been able to standardize it, and then we also hand it out at when we hire new teachers. On new teacher meetings, we then, one of the documents that they get, one of the how-tos, along with everything else they get as a new teacher, is the structure of our win time with our handbook.
Yeah, such a good idea. And as you were doing this implementation process, are there specific challenges that you faced, and what kind of helped you to face and overcome some of those?
Well, I think the initial challenge is just a new platform and a new software. It's just one more thing that our teachers have to learn. They've got a gradebook software, they've got a testing software, they've got discipline software. There's different things that they have to, and then they have their own tools that they like to use to enhance their classroom. So this was one more thing in which we had to do staff-wide training on it. So that would have been the first hurdle. The second one, another one is just some of our staff that have been tenured at our school for a while. And this is with anything, you get used to doing a certain thing a certain way. And then when this committee comes in and they have some different ideas and we put the handbook in place and we've got a new software, it isn't how it looked last year or the year before, and how they knew it. And so we're relatively new. We're a baby school as far as age. We've only, we opened in 2008. And so we still have some people that actually opened the building. And so they may or may not have seen some iterations of some of the things we've done in the past. So then they have some, predetermined thoughts about how it might go. And so we just have to stay consistent and with our expectation, and then also provide the clarity piece to students and continue to move forward. And it just eventually became part of what we do. Um, the other part of that is it was easier to implement when the opportunities existed for students and teachers when they're able to reap those benefits. So I know this is probably not part of this question, but I'll expand a little further. And that's this enables us to do some of those connection point activities with students that a lot of schools do after school. And so this provided students an opportunity to see the whole menu of what's happening throughout the building, to be able to pick and choose of what they might want to do. And as we know, when students are attached to activities and clubs, their performance at school and their attachment to school is better, and your overall school community and culture is so much better. So I guess that's a long way of saying once we were able to really reap the benefits of some of those things that are beyond just the classroom walls, those activities and clubs they were all about it. You get teachers that get to step out and do some things that are personal passions for them,
Hmm.
beyond, they're passionate about their content and what they're teaching, but they might also be passionate about something that is not woven into their classroom, and that they want to be a part of, and they want to promote, and they want to mentor students. There's no accessibility to that for students if we don't have it organized, and we haven't removed the barriers for them to be able to accept, to be able to access that during the school day.
As you've gone on with this program, I know you've tried a few different things. There was an article that kind of caught my attention. It was talking about your WIN program, about the program being rolled out, students, it mostly being teacher scheduled, and then giving students the opportunity to have more choice and schedule themselves, and then kind of having to roll that back based on what was happening there. So I was just wondering, when you've gone through these different iterations, what have you learned in the process? And does one approach seem to work better for your school?
What we had started with was teacher scheduling.
Hmm.
And we started with that as we had just rolled this out and our new structures and systems and getting people going. We had been through some extensive training with our teachers on the platform. And we felt like early on, we needed to have the adults in charge of it, of picking and choosing where the kids were going to go, with their conversation feedback. So we do a mentor Monday, is what we call it, in a Falcon Friday. We're about acronyms and kind of fun sayings. And our mentor Monday, is when they go to their advisory time, with the same group of students every Monday. And the goal would be for the teacher then to schedule the student on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to their choice of where they wanted to go or what they needed most. Hence, where when came from, right? What I need. And so a student might have a club on Tuesday, math help on Wednesday, math help on Thursday. And the teacher was then responsible for putting it in the software on their roster. After it became pattern and we were consistent with it, we started hearing from our teachers that they'd like to be able to turn some of this over to the students. They thought that if students could select and then they could pick up, I guess, the stragglers that either didn't select, maybe they left Wednesday off, they could have a conversation with kids. If you have a kid that's scheduled all, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they can just do a quick glance on the dashboard and their grades are populated there. And it was much quicker process. So that's what we then went to student scheduling and teacher scheduling. We opened up student scheduling slowly and we made it available only on one day of the week. We then rolled that back because we saw that we were having larger groups of students unscheduled. They just weren't getting scheduled. They were falling through the cracks. Our teachers have 1,000 things going. We rolled it back and recalibrated. Had some discussions with faculty about it in faculty meetings. Hey, look, we'd like to reopen this back up, but this is what happened. We had to roll it back. We got to get a handle on this. We have such a good thing going. If we don't get a handle on it now, it's going to get too far down the road. It's going to be hard to get back. And then so the third iteration that we went to after we rolled it back is then we opened it back up for students. But this time we actually went farther than we did the first time. And we allow them to self-schedule on Friday and Monday. Um, and actually we open it up on Thursday. So they can schedule on Thursday, Friday, and Monday for the next week.
Are there things that you found have helped motivate students to self-schedule?
Probably the adult influence.
Hmm.
Like if they're having we allow all kinds of things to people and groups to meet during this time. So for example, if the linebackers coach is having a meeting for their upcoming game on Friday, there's some pressure there for the kid to
Mm,
make sure that they scheduled himself into that meeting. Uh, that he doesn't want to miss that meeting, and all his buddies and teammates are in that meeting, and then he forgot to do it, and then he's not there.
yeah,
So there's some positive peer pressure that happens with peers, adult influence. Um, the other thing that's really helpful is engaging activities that our adults put in front of students. They then are motivated then to be a part of them and they want to be a part of them.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So it's kind of the interest-based activities and then a little bit of that accountability piece from the teachers, putting some healthy
Correct.
pressure on them.
And the parents help as well
Mm,
because I say a fallback, but I mean it is. We always have the ability when we have questions about students struggling in their content and their grades. We have a built-in time throughout the week during this time for students to get help. So my student is struggling in this class and they're not understanding it. Well, let's take a look at where their appointments have been over the last 2 weeks during this time period.
right.
Well, they haven't scheduled into math yet at all. So then now there's a conversation created at home about what their priorities are.
Mm,
Is it the student priority? Is it the parent priority? The parent didn't know that the student wasn't accessing this. Maybe the parent didn't know that it was available to them.
mhm.
And so it's created really good partnership and conversation with us and our parents on having an opportunity built into the school day. Yeah.
So for schools that are wanting to try something like this, and maybe include that piece of giving students choice about where they're going to go, um, are there some things that you would encourage them to keep in mind?
Yeah, here's one I had to come to grips with because I'm kind of a I'm kind of a control freak at times, right? I like to have organized, tidy systems and understanding, clear expectations, but in a way you have to allow some freedom and flexibility here. Freedom with bumpers, I guess, so to say. Um, because it's going to be some organized chaos at times during this. If you have kids on Tuesday, what for us, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you might be having a large group NHS meeting over here, and choir's got a meeting over here. These kids went to math class, and for a school our size, and they're moving around the building a lot to these appointments. You got to allow you just got to understand the flexibility behind it. You can't get worried about kind of the organized chaos because you're going to have a small group of students, just like you do first block and second block, that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And they might be assigned to math help, but they didn't go to math help. And so you got to have some systems and procedures in place to take care of that. But you can't let a small population of your student base dictate this system that we have in place that is beneficial to 95% or of your student population. That 5%, you got to let go at some time. It just gives students one other opportunity to kind of spread their wings and be a part of something, and kind of show themselves, and be a part of something that they can really align with. It's been kind of fun, and it's helped our culture and our building, our belonging, and kids wanting to come to school, and the sense of belonging that is within our hallways. Um, we have really seen that take off. And so it's a draw. It's a draw for students. It's a draw for adults to want to come work here because the burden isn't strictly on taking time after their contract time to do some of these extra things for students, right? They can do it and build it in. And so those are some of the benefits that we've seen in our school community, that goes beyond the walls of our classroom.
So what's next? Is there anything kind of on the horizon for Wind Time? Anything new that you guys are planning?
Yeah. So one of the things that we just had a big power meeting today, and one of the things we talked about in that meeting was, how do we get a little bit more intentional with some of our academic interventions? Because we have the club and activity thing nailed, and we are really doing, I think, a nice job with our belonging and getting kids part of some of those extracurriculars. But the ability for students to go see their math, science, social studies teachers is there. How do we get more intentional and specific about the reteaching opportunities, I think, is our next step. For example, I'm really good at this list of math problems, but I'm really struggling with this standard over here. And creating then some adjusted offerings that are just for that particular math standard, and then targeting groups of students that just need help on that particular standard for some reteaching opportunities, I think, is our next step. Um, as we try and grow and evolve.
If there's one thing you want someone to take away from this, or one piece of advice for an educator who wants to implement something like Wind Time, what would it be?
I would say the really think about your time, and don't be afraid to repurpose the minutes in your school day. And just because a schedule or a school day was built a certain way 25 or 30 years ago, and that is the traditional way of doing it, doesn't mean that you have to stick to that way. And be flexible, try something, go out on a limb, and that's kind of what we did, and we believe really strongly here in our the impact of our club activity sports, and the impact that it has on the academic side. And so I think that's what's unique to us is rethink that time. And just because it hasn't been done like that doesn't mean you can't do it.